Hello everyone and welcome to another very enthusiastic and interesting lesson. And in this lesson I am going to explain that how shifts in either demand or supply or with a simultaneous shift in both demand and supply can cause a change in the prices and the quantities at the new points after the shift. So for this lesson I just want that you must have a pencil and paper and also a scale with you, so that you just have to draw the diagrams with me, because there are going to be a lot of diagrams to analyze the direction of changes in the prices and the quantity at the new point after the shifts in demand supply, or shifts in both of demand and supply at the same time. So this lesson is going to be I think a very interesting lesson from the theory of demand and supply. So here is the plan. At first phase, I will explain how can we show the direction of changes in prices and the quantity after shifting either the supply curve individually or the demand curve individually. And then as a next step, we will go through the changes in the supply and changes in the prices and the quantities when both supply and demand shifts simultaneously, or they shift at the same time. So then we will analyze that how that simultaneous shift affect the changes in prices and the quantities with this new situation after the shifting of these curves. Related with the shifts of supply and demand, there are basically four rules, and if we have understood those four rules of shift in demand and supply, then we can easily interpret, or we can easily find the solution or find the effect of these shifts on the equilibrium prices and quantities. The first two rules are concerned with the changes in demand when demand increases or demand decreases. Demand increase in demand, it is actually the shift in demand to the right, showing a higher demand, and decrease in demand, shows the change in demand. A decrease in demand can be shown by shifting the demand curve to the left. The third and the fourth rule are concerned with the changes in supply. When supply increases and when supply decreases, what happened to the equilibrium price and quantity because of those shifts. So we are going to study the effect of these four changes in supply and demand on the equilibrium prices and quantities. And if you understood it, then I'm sure I ensure you that you will understand any kind of changes in equilibrium prices and quantity because of the changes in demand and supply. So let us first consider the changes in demand, which shows the shifts in the demand, demand. If this is demand, then you know that either demand can shift upward or downward. Upward shift of demand is showing an increase in demand, and downward shift is showing decrease in demand. So now we are going to study that how these shifts basically cause a change in the market equilibrium prices and quantities. So whenever you are going to explore the answer of these shifts on the prices and quantities, always try to draw a diagram. So I am drawing here the diagram so it will be more clear. So again, so here is the axis, quantity and prices, and let us see that this is the initial demand curve, and here is the initial supply curve, and the equilibrium price and quantity can be determined by this point E. So here is the price and here's the equilibrium quantity. Now what happened, that we are going to consider the changes in demand. So, and what happened, that the demand just let us suppose that demand increases here. So demand increases because of any shifting factor. What can be the shifting factor of demand? Shifting factor of demand can be the change in consumer income, or change in the taste of the consumer, number of buyers, and further future expectations of prices, right? Expectations. So always remember that these are the shifting factors. Okay, because of that, if demand shifts upward, showing an increase in demand, then what happened to the prices and quantities? Let us define that with a point where the new demand curve intersect the supply curve. Supply remains same. So the new demand curve intersects supply curve here at this point, let us say E1. And what will be the quantity, equilibrium quantity and price at this point? It can be shown by Q1 and P1. So now you can easily find out the result of the increase in demand on the prices and the quantity. You can see that both prices and quantity, they are actually going to increase at the new equilibrium point. So this is actually the result, that whenever there is an increase in the demand, there will always be an increase in the price and increase in the quantity at the new equilibrium point. Okay, now consider the second case, when this is the first case is the case with the increase in demand. Now I am going to consider the change in demand as decrease in demand. So again we need to draw a diagram in order to see that what happened to the equilibrium price and quantity at the new equilibrium price. So if this is the initial demand curve and this is the initial supply curve, and this is the initial price and quantity at this equilibrium point. So now we are considering that instead of increase in demand, we are considering that demand is now decrease because of changes in one of these factors I have mentioned here. So you can see here that this new demand curve is intersecting the supply curve at this new point, which is denoted by E1, and at this point, new equilibrium point, the quantity can be defined as Q1 and price is defined as P1. So you can see that at new equilibrium point, quantity decreases while price also decreases. So what you have learned from here, that whenever there is a decrease in demand, it will always result a decrease in price and a decrease in quantity. So these are the first two rules shown by the use of the diagram. So the third and the fourth rule is concerned with the changes in the supply. Changes in supply mean increase in supply or decrease in supply. And you know that what are the shifting factors of supply? Shifting factors of supply are the changes, all those factors that actually cause a change in the cost of production, just like the changes in the input prices, and then changes in the number of sellers, or changes in the future prices, expectations about the future prices, and then you can also uh, take here as the weather, changes in the weather, or changes in technology. Okay, always remember all these factors. So supply is basically going to change whenever there is a change in these factors. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are going to consider that what happened to the equilibrium price and quantity when there is an increase or decrease in supply. So let us again consider the first case when supply increases and demand remains same. So this is the initial, if this is the initial demand curve and initial supply curve, and this is the initial equilibrium price and this is the initial equilibrium quantity. And now what we are going to study, we are going to see that what happened to this price and quantity when supply shifts downward, showing an increase in the supply. So let us say that the new supply curve is this one, and this new curve intersects the demand curve at a new point which is lower than before. So let us now see what happened to the price and quantity at this new equilibrium point after the shift of supply. You can see that the price at this point is, let us say, P1 and Q1. uh, price is decreasing here, as you can see that price is decreasing while quantity is sorry quantity has increased. So whenever there is an increase in the there is an increase in supply, it will also result as an increase in the quantity and a decrease in the price at the new equilibrium point. Okay, now let us consider the second case. Again, what we have to do, we are trying to find out that what happened to the price and quantity with the decrease in supply. What happened to the price and quantity with the decrease in the supply? So again, we need to draw the diagram. Always remember that you will find a right solution when you are just trying to find out the solution by using a diagram. So always try to draw a diagram. Okay, so this is the initial price and quantity. Okay, and what about the new one? We are considering here, okay, this is the demand curve and here is the supply. So we are trying to see or analyze the case when supply decreases. So supply decrease means that supply curve shifts upward, right? So what will happen to the price and quantity? For that we just need to move from the new equilibrium point on the quantity axis and the price axis, right? So what you have seen here, that quantity has decreased while price has increased. So whenever there is a decrease in supply, it will always result in decrease in quantity while with the increase in price. So this is the result of our fourth rule. Okay, I hope that you have understood these four rules, and you also have understood that how the shifts in supply and demand actually cause a change in the equilibrium prices and quantities, and now you know what will be the direction of change in prices and quantity. So you just have learned the four rules of shifts in supply and demand, and also you have learned that in which direction the prices and quantities are going to change at the new equilibrium points in the market. On this slide, I am just going to summarize the results. Whenever there is, you have learned that whenever there is an increase in demand, the price at the new equilibrium is going to increase, and quantity it will also increase. In the same way, when there is a decrease in the demand, the prices will decrease and the quantities at the new equilibrium point, they will also decrease. Okay, and let us try to define the direction of change in prices and quantity with respect to supply. Whenever there is an increase in supply, of course there will be an increase in quantity and there will be a decrease in price. On the other hand, if supply decreases, then it will cause a decrease in quantity and increase in prices. So I hope that it will help you a lot to just remember the direction of changes. But I always recommend that you must need to draw the diagram. So now it's time to just take a challenge after learning how you can understand the shifts in demand or shifts in supply. So let us try to go through this example. Suppose that people find out that eating more olives improve their health. That leads them to increase their demand for olives. So what will happen to the equilibrium price of olives and equilibrium quantity of olives because of this new change? So what will be your answer? How can you find out? Will the price decrease falls? Will the price of olives falls or equilibrium quantity decreases, or will the price of olives falls while the equilibrium quantity increases, or will both they rise or increase, or will the price will rise and quantity will decrease? So what will be the answer? So let us try to first draw this situation. Let me draw it like this, that this is the market of olives, right? Quantity of olive is here, price is here, and let us say this is the initial point of equilibrium. And what happened, that demand, this is the demand curve and here is the supply curve. So now what happened, that the demand for olives has increased, so it means demand is going to be shift somewhere here. Okay, so what will happen to the price? This is your new equilibrium point because supply remains same but demand has increased. So at this point you can see that price is going to be P1 greater than before. And what about quantity? It is also going to be equilibrium quantity, it is also going to be higher than before. So both are actually increasing. So the right answer is that price of olives, it will rises, and the equilibrium quantity, it will also increase. Option C is going to be the right answer. Okay, so I hope that you have understood it. In the same way, you can just go through the different examples where you can understand, you can draw a change in the supply curve and then the impact of that change on the equilibrium price and quantity. Now we are going to analyze that what happened to the prices and quantity at the new equilibrium when both demand and supply changes at the same time. So basically we are going to learn what happened to the price and quantity when there is a simultaneous changes in the demand and supply. So simultaneous shifts, whenever there is a simultaneous shift in supply and demand, the impact of that changes on the equilibrium price and quantity after the shift takes place can be defined or can be explored by by analyzing this shift into four different patterns. The first case can be when both demand and supply they both increase, and the second can be the case when both demand and supply they both decrease, and the third case can be the case when demand is increasing while supply is decreasing, or the fourth case is when demand is decreasing and supply it will increase. So whenever we have to define the results of these shifts on the price and quantity at the new point, we always it is always recommended that we need to make diagrams to show the right direction of price and the quantity on the new equilibrium. Okay, so let us now try to go through one by one all these four situations. Let us consider the first case where both demand and supply increases at the same time, and we have to see that what happened to the prices and quantities at the new equilibrium point E1, right? E1. Okay, so let us consider we can analyze the changes in the price and quantities by considering different magnitudes of shift for both supply and demand. So let us say that when the magnitude of demand is greater than the magnitude of supply. So let me draw it like this. Let me draw it like this, that this is our new demand curve D prime, and what about supply? Supply has changed that much. So this is our new supply curve S prime, and here this one is the old equilibrium point and this one is the new equilibrium point, and you can see that the quantity at the new equilibrium quantity at the new point is Q1, and the price is P1. And here you should notice that when both demand and supply they increase, then there will be an increase in price and quantity at the new equilibrium point E1. So and what you must remember here, that the shift in the demand curve is that much, while the shift in the supply curve is that much. Means that shift in demand is greater than the shift in supply. So in that case, both prices and quantities they will increase. Okay, now consider the second case where again we need to shift the demand and supply both, but now I am going to change the magnitude of the shift. Now demand is increasing that much, so the new demand curve is here. And what about supply? The new supply curve, let us suppose that it is this one, and here is the new equilibrium point, which shows that the price, which shows a decrease in price and an increase in the quantity at the new equilibrium point. So here you can see Q1 and P1, and what you have learned here, that here you can see that at point E1 price is actually decreasing, and quantity price is decreasing, while quantity is increasing from Q to Q1. So this is the result of the second type of shift. And here why we have this result, why it is not like before, because if we look at the shift in demand, this time the shift in demand is that much, while the shift in supply is greater than the shift in demand. So that's why we will have this result that quantity will increase but price this time is going to decrease. There is another case that when when both demand and supply increases with the same magnitude. Now both are increasing by the same magnitude, then in that case we can say that the price, let us see what will be the result. So here is the new demand curve and here is the new supply curve, and they both intersect here at a new equilibrium point after the shift. This one is the old one, and you will see that price remains same, but quantity is going to increase from Q to Q1. So in this case you just have learned that whenever there is a shift in demand and supply with the same magnitude, and then at the new equilibrium point prices remains same, they are not going to change, while quantity it will increase at the new equilibrium point. So now it's time to just analyze this situation. Now it's time to summarize all the results. You can see that there is, in all these three cases, both supply and demand, they are actually increasing, but the effect on the price and equilibrium after the shift or at the new equilibrium point is different in all of these three cases. Okay, in first case you can see that there is an increase in price. In the second case you can see that there is a decrease in price, and in the third case you can see that the price remains same, there is no change in price. So what does it mean? That change in price at the new equilibrium is that we are not sure about the direction of change in the price, right? It can increase or it can decrease or it can remain same at the new point. So, and in economics sometimes we turn it that the impact on the new on the prices, it is ambiguous or unclear, right? But what about the quantity? You can see that in all these three cases quantity is actually increasing. It is not decreasing or remaining the same. So you are quite sure about the direction of change in the quantity at the new equilibrium point, that it will increase in all these cases. So you are quite sure or definite that the quantity, it will increase whenever there is an increase and in demand and supply at the same time. Whenever they both increases at the same time, quantity will always increase, but the changes in prices are ambiguous, or prices can be increased, decrease, or remain same. It depends on the magnitude of the change in demand and supply. So whenever the magnitude of demand is greater than supply, just like the first case here in this case, right? Or maybe I should take some other color, this one. So This is the number one case. Then in that case prices will increase. If the price if the demand increase in demand is lower than the magnitude of increase in supply, then in the second case, according to this case, prices will decrease. On the other hand, if the change in demand and supply, the magnitude of change, increase in demand and supply, it remains same. If it remains same, then it means that the prices, they will remain same, there will be no change. I hope that you have understood from this explanation by using the three diagrams, that whenever whenever both demand and supply increases, we are sure with the quantity change that it will increase, but we are ambiguous or unclear with the direction of change in price. It can remain same, increase or decrease, depends on the magnitude of the shift. So now let us consider the second case when both demand and supply, they are both decreasing at the same time. Demand and supply both are decreasing at the same time, and we are going to analyze the change in the price and the quantity at the new equilibrium point, which is E1, that occur after the shift in the demand and supply. So here I am considering a shift in supply, which is like this. S prime is the new supply curve. And what about the demand curve? Demand shift is let us say like this. So this is your new demand curve, and here is the new supply curve, and they both intersect at a point E1. So the equilibrium quantity is going to be Q1, and price is going to be P1. So you just have seen that at the new equilibrium point, price actually decreases and quantity is also decreasing. So both price and quantities are going to decrease in this case. Okay, now consider the second case where now we are shifting the supply curve more to the left compared to the demand curve. So let us say that this time the demand shift is lower than the supply shift. So if this is the demand curve, then you can see here is the new equilibrium, and the new quantity is going to be lower while the price is higher in this case. So as you can see that at new equilibrium the price is going to be higher while the quantity is going to decrease, right? This is the second case. Now consider the third case. In the third case we are going to shift both demand and supply with the same magnitude. So if this is the supply curve and here is the demand curve, then you can see that they both are intersecting at point E1, and which shows that equilibrium quantity at this new point is going to be lower while price remains same. So at this new point price remains same, but quantity, it will decrease. So by analyzing the result of these three cases, we can say with a sure or with a certainty that quantity is going to decrease, as it is clear with all three cases. You can see that quantity is actually decreasing. So you are sure that whenever there is a decrease in demand and supply at the same time or simultaneously, quantity will surely going to decrease. While if you look at the price, you can see that in the first case price is decreasing, in second case it is going to increase, and in the third case it remains same. So you are not sure about the change in the price. So price change is going to be ambiguous or unclear. So with this analysis, you have finished with the second case of simultaneous shifts in demand and supply. Let us consider the third case. So here again we are going to see that what happened to the price and quantity at the new equilibrium when demand and supply, they are changing in the opposite direction. For example, if demand increases and at the same time supply decreases, then what will happen to the prices and the quantity at the new equilibrium point E1. So in this case what we are actually trying to understand, that demand is increasing. So demand is increasing means that demand is going to shift upward, showing an increase in demand, while supply is shifting downward, showing a decrease in okay. So here is your demand curve, it shifts upward while supply is decreasing. So supply is decreasing. So here is the new supply curve. So now you can see that what happened, that quantity in this case is going to increase. Quantity will increase while the price is also going to increase. Okay, so at E1 you just have seen that quantity, it will increase and at the same time price will also increase. Okay, now consider the second case when demand increases and supply decreases. Now let us say that demand has increased and the shift in demand is lower than the shift in the supply. So this is the new demand curve, and here is what decrease in supply is more. So in that case, what you will see that according to the new equilibrium point, quantity will decrease while price, it will increase. So what you have learned here, that at new point quantity, it will decrease while price, it will increase. The third case is that when both shifts, demand and supply, both the demand increases by the same amount as the supply decreases. So let us say that supply is decreasing, so supply should shift upward, and demand is increasing by the same amount. So let us say that this is your new demand curve. So here is demand and here is supply. Supply decreases while demand is increasing. So they will meet here at this E1 point, and here you can see that quantity remains same while price, it will increases from P to P1, but quantity remains same. So what you have learned here, that when the magnitude of shift in increase in demand and decrease in supply, they are same, then at the new point quantity will remain same. Quantity will remain same, it will not change, while price will increase. Now again we have to summarize your result, that if you look at the prices, then prices in all these three cases it will remain same. Which shows that prices are definitely going to increase whenever there is an increase in demand and decrease in supply. But for quantity, we can say that it can increase, or it can decrease, or it can remains same. So you are basically ambiguous for change in the quantity. It can increase, decrease, or it remains same. It depends on the magnitude of the shift in supply and demand. Now consider the fourth case, when demand where we combine a decrease in demand with the increase in supply. So in that case, what will be the price and quantity at the new equilibrium price? What is going to be the direction of change? Okay, again we need to draw three diagrams, and what we have to do, we have to show a decrease in demand and increase in supply. Decrease in demand is more than the increase in supply. So this is the first case, that decrease in demand is like this, while the increase in supply is lower than the magnitude of decrease in demand. Okay, let me draw it like this. So the new equilibrium point is here, E1, and it is showing that quantity it will decrease, while price it will also decrease. So at the new point E1, both quantity and prices are going to decrease. Now consider the second case, when demand decreases again, but this time decrease in demand is lower than the magnitude of increase in supply. So this is your new supply curve, and they both intersect here, and here you can see that quantity has increased. And what about price? Price has decreased. So what you have learned here, that when supply is increasing that much, while demand is decreasing that much. Here demand is decreasing that much and supply is increasing that much. Okay, so come back here. Now you can see that in the second case, at E1, quantity price will definitely going to decrease and quantity is going to increase. Now consider the case when both shifts, decrease in demand and increase in supply, they have the same magnitude. Okay, in that case, decrease in demand can be shown here. And what about increase in supply? Increase in supply can be shown like this. The magnitude of both shifts are same. So this time the new equilibrium point is here, the old one is here, and you can see that quantity remains same at E1. At E1, quantity remains same, while price it will decrease and the quantity remains same. So at new equilibrium, what will be the result? that whenever the magnitude of shift in demand and supply are same, then at new equilibrium price it will decrease while quantity remains same. So by summarizing all these results of three different three types of shifts in demand and supply with different magnitudes, we can say that whenever there is a decrease in demand and increase in supply, we can say that there is definitely a decrease in price. Price in all these three cases is decreasing. What about quantity? Quantity in first case decreases, in second case increases, and in third case remains same. So we are not sure what will happen to the quantity at the new equilibrium point. It can increase, or it can decrease, or it can remain same. So we are actually ambiguous. So about quantity we are not sure about the direction of change, but we are sure about the direction of change in prices whenever there is a decrease in demand and increase in supply. I hope that you have understood all these four cases and also the direction of change in the prices and the quantity. So now we are going to consider some examples so it will be more clear. And further, if you become an expert of it, always try to, whenever you have a situation, you always need to draw a diagram and then try to explore the changes in the prices and quantity at the new equilibrium point. Now I am going to summarize all the results we have analyzed on the previous slides by going through all four different cases, that when both demand and supply they both increase, and when they both decrease, and when one increase and the other one decrease, and when demand decrease and supply increase. So from the previous slides you have learned that when there is increase in both demand and supply, then price is going to be unclear, it become ambiguous, while quantity will always increase. On the other hand, when both decrease, then again changes in price are going to be ambiguous, but the quantity it will decrease. And when demand increase and supply decrease, then in that case there will always be an increase in price, but the quantity is going to be ambiguous, right? Quantity is going to be ambiguous. And then when demand decrease and supply increase, in that case there will always be a decrease in price, and quantity is again going to be ambiguous. So here so this table actually gives you a summary of what you have done or learned from the previous 4 or 5 slides. So here is an example where you can use what you have learned about the simultaneous shifts of demand and supply. You can practice it from here. So let us go through this example. It says that in the market for apples, the demand and supply of apples decreases by the same amount. The equilibrium quantity will increase, decrease, remain same, and the equilibrium price will increase, decrease, or remain same. So, okay, so here are some options given here. Okay, so you always remember that you need to draw a diagram. So basically what is the case here, that both supply and demand, what is the direction of change? Both are decreasing. Okay, they both are decreasing at the same time or with the same amount. It is very important that both are decreasing with the same amount. So now you have to tell about the equilibrium price and quantity. For that, what you need to do, you just need to draw a diagram. This is your supply, this is your demand, price, quantity. Okay, this is your initial quantity and initial price at this equilibrium. Now they both are decreasing with the same amount. So what will be the price and quantity? Okay, so they are decreasing, so we need to shift the supply to the left and also the demand to the left. So in this case you can see price remains same while quantity will decrease. So where is that answer? Price where quantity will decrease, yes, here quantity will decrease while price will not change. So the right option is actually C. So this is the way how you will have to answer these types of questions related with the simultaneous shifts in demand and supply. There are more questions that you have to go through from those questions just for practice. I hope that you have understood this topic of shifts in demand and supply. If you like this video, then please thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. And if you further wants to have some new videos, then you can recommend those topics in the comment section below the video. Thank you.